Hi, my name is Mario Mitchell, and I am introducing to you Faces of Local. The concept behind this is to sit down and allow me to interview some of the most dynamic people in our industry. Dig deep with them, share their stories, and most importantly, share their stories with you. You ready? Okay. What originally drew you into the world of finance? Was it intentional, or did life nudge you here?
Yeah, so getting into lending, let alone real estate, I started at 19. And I went to school, graduated school early, and then took a summer job. My aunt was having trouble paying bills, and I took a summer job to make extra money, and no one told me that making commission was hard. 23 years old, and I had been in this at this point now for several years. The youngest person in the office with me was in his early 40s. And you made commission and fees in lending then. So you were able to charge different points. I was averaging around $40,000 to $60,000 a month. And people in the office maybe didn't show up for themselves the same way that I did. And the industry was different. It was a lot of people who had moved from the car industry over some other things, because at that point money kind of rained from the sky with some of the guidelines and things being so lax. I decided that the atmosphere I wasn't super excited about being in, so I decided to quit in a conference room one day when the manager was being mean to someone. Wow. And I resigned in front of like 50 people, like a gangster, which isn't normally my MO in a public space like that, but resigned, walked to my desk, got my things, and trolled over to rent an executive business suite. And within 2 weeks, I had 8 employees that followed me. Well, I went to the bank because I knew I would need my finances to show the leasing agent for this executive business suite. Now, mind you, I'm in my 40s now. So in your 20s, 20 years ago, an executive business suite probably per office was like $250 an office. I get the last few months of my bank statements and I head in, and the lady, her name was Amanda, greeted me, and almost like she felt bad for me because I was like, I'm starting a company today. Now, mind you, someone that's a child standing in front of you essentially is like, I'm running this space. So she goes into, well, you'll need your business. And I said, they're faxing. I got your fax number from the receptionist. They're faxing the information over. She's like, well, you'll need assets. You'll need this stuff. And I said, okay. And I said, well, can we at least go sit? So I go through this thing, and I'm so naive to the fact of what's necessary for that space. I just know, because of how I was raised, I didn't spend money. So I packed my lunch every day. Ate the same thing for breakfast every day. I sat in my office. I worked a lot. So I hand this one of my bank statements, and they're in a manila envelope. And I said, well, I don't know if I have enough. Now, once again, the amount of that lease was probably $250. And executive business suites are like month to month. This lady opens this manila envelope, and still to this day, I get chills. It makes me laugh as an adult now, because now I know what she was looking at. I had over $250,000 in a bank account, and I'm handing it to this woman, asking her if she thought I could run a business. I'm like sitting at the other side of this desk, right? And I'm like, is this enough? And I think that's probably one of the funniest, most defining moments, just to know that I knew what I was doing in the business, but having to learn the on-the-business activities was equally, if not more important. And going into that space, I knew how to do the day-to-day, but I didn't know how to run the day-to-day.
What was the biggest challenge you faced while scaling this business that you now have, and how did you push through it?
I think retention of business is sometimes more difficult than a scale. In our industry, there's so many cycles that we've gone through, and even the last decade and a half, that most people are more focused on the growth trajectory, and they're focused on the next step and maybe not paying as much attention to their current steps. I think the biggest thing that I learned was the right partnerships matter, and cutting the wrong partnerships sooner. And you want to see the potential in a person, but potential has to be ignited, and knowing that the partners that you're partnering with have the same moral compass, have the same work ethic, have the same integrity, all of those things, because the wrong partners, no matter how hard you run, sometimes can kill not just your business, but kill morale in an office where other people are building towards the same trajectory. I went through some medical things, and I almost passed away a few years ago. I think the part of me being in the hospital answering questions for people and not having a conversation with them to let them know like real life things happening, you realize being self-employed, you're always on, right? Like it weighs on, and it's not just for lending and it's not just in real estate, but you always have this piece of you that's like, okay, and it's not that people are always selling, but I do think that there is this stigma around success in general that says, this is where you're not vulnerable. This is where you're not here, and this is what you're building towards. I actually took a step back and relinquished the relationships and the partnerships that we had because I realized who and what I was doing certain things for may have been financially lucrative, but I would rather function lean and mean to rebuild the culture and the community and be able to marry peace and purpose. And we had maybe 3 months or 4 months that were really, we paid all of our bills, but they were very different months than what we'd been used to. But it didn't take long for us to make room for the time and also the headspace and attract the right people into that space. But it also allowed me to recalibrate my own core, which I feel like is something that needs to be revisited. Most entrepreneurs, people who are building a success platform, really need to sit down with themselves, not just daily with their daily activities, but monthly, and say, am I on track for my goals? And is this bringing me peace? Is this what my purpose is for? And doing more of a self-reflection space, which I've done over the last 3 years since.